Mr. Pat, for me, I know you've been interviewed on this thing before, okay? And I've got the transcripts of those interviews and things that were said. Now I've got to redo those interviews so I can get them to close this case.
This is 72-year-old Merle Mackey, who is currently being interrogated by detectives at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office for the disappearance of his wife, Evelyn Laverne Mackey, in 1981. To understand how we got here and why he's being interrogated for a missing case that happened over 3 decades ago, we need to know how this whole thing began. The story takes place in Hernando County, Florida. Evelyn Laverne, who was divorced from her Navy SEAL husband Larry Wallace, had to raise her 2 children on her own, 11-year-old Kelly Carpenter and 19-year-old Charles Trulock. Sometime in the late 70s, she met Merle Mackey at a prison outreach ministry for non-violent offenders. This event took place at her local church, and after seeing each other regularly, the two quickly formed a strong relationship. Merle was in and out of prison at the time, but quickly settled and moved in with Evelyn once they got married. They were a happy couple, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. Evelyn's teenage daughter last saw her on the morning of November 5th, 1981. She made breakfast for her daughter, and Evelyn's new husband, Merle Mackey, took her to school. That afternoon, Merle went to pick up Evelyn's daughter alone. He told her and her brother that Evelyn had gone to Ohio to take care of her sick sister-in-law, but she did not arrive there, and her sister-in-law wasn't expecting a visit from her. Just a few days after Evelyn was last seen, Kelly was starting to get more and more worried for her mother, continually asking her stepfather about her whereabouts and when she would be coming home. Merle also told the police different stories, saying Evelyn had gone to Tampa, Florida, but she had returned home and left with a boyfriend. This didn't align with his previous statements and seemed completely out of character for Evelyn. Merle's lies did not stop there. He consistently changed his story, stating that she'd gone away to be a missionary or that she left the country to live somewhere else. The only thing that the detectives were certain of was that Merle Mackey was a compulsive liar. He was a person who liked to tell falsehoods out of habit, and he continued to tweak and change his narrative each time he was interviewed. All that detectives knew at the time was that Evelyn vanished from the face of the earth on November 5th. There was no record of her being anywhere. Her family reported her missing in January 1982. Detectives learned that on the day she went missing, money had been withdrawn from her banking account multiple times. Months later, the account was completely empty. At that point, the case went cold, and it was not until Sergeant Phil Lonkin attended the National Homicide Conference 33 years later that an inquiry into Laverne's disappearance was reignited. Investigators tracked down Merle in Chandler, Texas, and executed a ruse. They told him a plane crashed in South America and that they might have found Laverne's remains, possibly entitling him to money from the airline. In order for Merle to collect the payment, however, they said he needed to go over his statement regarding her disappearance. Merle agreed, and once back at the station, investigators would ask him to authenticate his previous interview transcripts. Work with me.
Do you remember the day she left? No. I'm trying to think forward. Come on. Work with me here, buddy.
Here, the detective is clearly frustrated, but he quickly makes it seem as if he was joking as he laughs it off. If he gets too serious too soon, Merle would feel threatened and backed into a corner, limiting any chance of getting a confession. Establishing a friendly atmosphere where it's easy for both of them to converse is highly important in this interrogation.
Do you remember her ever saying something about her brother's wife being sick? I don't recall that at all. And we'll go from there. I can't remember what I ate for supper yet. The day she came up missing, were you at work or what? I don't have any clue. When she left, do you remember going to the bank and getting money out of the bank? The bank remembers you going to the bank and getting money out of the bank. I don't know how much I got. I can tell you. How much? I want to validate these interviews, and you're making it hard on me. I thought we'd be in and out of here in about 45 minutes. A little further.
At this point, the situation is very fragile. The detective has no legal right to detain Merle, and if he pushes him too far, he will leave. The detective is trying to find the right balance of still fishing for the right information whilst being careful not to trigger Merle into leaving the room. This is an interview that you have here.
He said, well, she already had the suitcase packed and all that stuff. She's going to take it with her. Do you remember why she told you she needed to go again? Her brother's wife was sick. I don't remember what she was sick from. Had she ever gone up to take care of her brother or his wives or anything before? I don't think so. Was that the first time? Yeah. She said she was going to be gone for a couple of weeks, and if she'd gone a little bit longer, I just figured something needed a little more time. That memory's a lot better than you remember. Something that I discovered was that she had been going with some guy that she worked with at the driver's license office. He said, I saw her. So I asked, okay. He said, I saw her about a week after that second phone call. She had a green Cutlass. I wanted to go through your interviews because I wanted you to realize what you said back then. And did I kind of play a trick on you about she's been found before? Yes, I did. Okay? And I apologize for that. But I didn't know any other way I could get you to walk through the story. On one hand, I took the anchor, I put it on her, and I wrapped it around her with the rope. And I turned her loose and shoved her underneath the stuff. Tell us where we can find her so we can give her body back to the kid. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will drive to Florida, and I'll go with you to that country. And I will call you as soon as I get there. You can go there with us. You can drive the front seat. We can go there. I don't want to do that. I'm done. You want to argue? I don't want to argue. I said I will be in Florida, and I will show you the doctor. That's it. I'm done.
Although Merle had confessed to killing his wife, the case was out of the detective's jurisdiction, meaning they had no authority or arrest powers. They presented the case to Florida's 8th Judicial Circuit, Assistant Attorney Brian Kramer, and a grand jury indicted Merle for first-degree murder. Detectives searched the docks where he claimed to have left Laverne's body, but they concluded there was no way her body was going to be found. They didn't believe that Merle was telling the truth about where he hid the body. Merle pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison.